Fans of old school Embodiment and The Famine, rejoice! We are so back. The wait is over. Hello, hello, and welcome back to DFT'S Dungeon. I'm Daniel Terry. And you guys know me, right? You know that I'm a nostalgia channel mostly. Like, I very rarely review new albums because I'm old and it takes me a long time sometimes to get around to listening to new releases and new bands. But in the case of Hope Deferred, I had to make a little bit of an exception. And I think a lot of you guys know why. See, I've been waiting for this album for a very, very long time. And I think a lot of you guys have been as well. Which is why I think Hope Deferred is a very apt name for this band. It's taken from Proverbs 13:12, which reads, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life." And if you've been watching my channel for a while, you may or may not be aware of the fact that I am a huge fan of a band called Embodyment, to the point where a couple years ago, I made a ridiculously long video about the history of that band, which you should totally check out after you're done with this video. But the thing is that Embodiment had a very, we'll call it, unique musical evolution, in that they started as a death metal band, a very, very brutal death metal band. And then they changed into more of a metalcore band. And then before it was all done, they ended up being a full-fledged alternative rock band. Shortly after that, they kind of disappeared. And fans of the old school death metal Embodiment, we were just kind of out of luck, right? I mean, I liked the later material, but, you know, a lot of metalheads, they're not going to be super interested if you go alternative rock after you melted their faces off with your death metal songs, right? And a few years later, some of the members of Embodiment actually reunited, and they formed a new band called The Famine. So now, what do we get? And that band was its own original thing, but it was super heavy, and it was a lot closer to the death metal sound of old school Embodiment. Sadly, after 2 albums, that band also kind of disappeared. But in the last several years, the guys from that band have teased a new project that was supposed to be a return to the death metal sound of old. And that band was called Hope Deferred, which was likely a partial acknowledgement that fans of the old school sound had waited such a considerable amount of time to hear any new music. And a few years ago, on my old podcast, Discuss Metal, I actually interviewed David Bunton from The Showdown. And we got to talking about how much we loved old Embodiment and The Famine, and he mentioned how he always wanted to record death metal with those guys. And I guess eventually David did get in touch with Andrew Godwin, because it was announced not long after that conversation that David had officially joined Hope Deferred on lead vocals. And so to say my interest was piqued at that point is a pretty massive understatement. Now, I know you guys are thinking like, okay, Dan, that's really great, but what does this record actually sound like? So let's get into the actual album review that you're here for. Full disclosure, the band did send me this album before it's released just so that I could get a review out, but the opinion that you're about to hear is the opinion of Dan Terry and has not been influenced by anybody in the band or anything like that. This is truly how I feel about this record. So the 2 words that I would use to describe this album are epic and punishing. But let's go ahead and start off talking about punishing because, it's a death metal record, right? So let me ask you a question. Have you ever been assaulted by riffs? And I don't mean like melodic, feel-good, twin guitar harmony type of riffs. I mean like absolute meat grinder style riffing. Similar to what you would hear from bands like early Morbid Angel, or even Suffocation, like Pierced from Within era Suffocation. But then you have kind of this patented Texas groove thing that's tied into it. And what you end up with is a high caliber death metal sound that I'm honestly not used to hearing in this scene. And then you take that sort of groovy meat grinder style of riffing and you mix it with David Bunton's vocals. And I remember when it was announced that David was going to be joining the band. See, David's band, The Showdown, while they are heavy and David does utilize guttural vocals from time to time, there's also a much larger vocal variety that is required for The Showdown than maybe something like Hope Deferred. So going into it, I was like, okay, he's probably just gonna do the guttural growl the entire time. And he absolutely does deliver the goods in that department, and I had no doubt in my mind that he was gonna sound awesome. But what I also really liked was that he doesn't just go one guttural tone through the entire thing. There's still a lot of dynamic variety going on with his pitch and especially with his vocal pace. He delivers more of a kind of hardcore energy to it. And before you get your pitchforks out, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. This is still 97% a pummeling death metal experience. I'm just saying that David has introduced a lot of cool vocal variety on this album to make it a little bit more interesting of an experience than what you would normally get on a single pitch death metal album. And just look at songs like Commanded to Kill, Brethren of Blood, An Inhumane World, to get a better understanding of what I'm trying to say here. The other word that I used to describe it was epic, and I think the band delivers this on songs like Void with No Voice, Darkness Remains, and the album closer, Wrath's Misery. Because these songs tastefully slow down the otherwise breakneck pace of the album to deliver some incredibly epic riffs and breathtaking moments. And I appreciate how much effort went into the pacing of this album and delivering these more epic moments at the appropriate times to really capitalize on the spectacle of all of it. And I could go on, but I think you guys get the idea. The biggest question you might have is, Dan, was this worth the wait? And in my opinion, the answer is definitely yes. I was blown away when I got the opportunity to listen to this record, and I think you guys will be as well. And I'm going to keep this video kind of short so you guys can spend more time listening to the album and less time listening to me. However, if you can't get enough lore about this album, I know my buddy Jeremy from the Rumors Are True podcast is about to drop a 2-hour interview with Andrew Godwin of Hope Deferred. So I think that you guys should definitely check that out. When that is available, I will put a link to it in my video description. But for now, guys, I'm going to get back to listening to this album. That's all I have for this one. Thanks so much for watching, and go check this thing out. I'll see you guys on the next one.